must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Viewers, good morning. This morning, I want to address the issue of Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy. The legacy of His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya keeps on moving, keeps on going forward and forward. Since the handshake in 2018 that brought about the peace, the tranquility, the unity of purpose, President Uhuru's star has been rising. All over Africa, people are thinking of using the model that Kenya used to stop any form of violence, chaos on the streets after elections. As you know, all of you are aware that elections in Africa produce two things: after or before or after the voting. Disputed elections, winner takes it all, loser doesn't accept the results. But the Kenyan model takes us miles and miles away from the normal type of democracy. The democracy, a negotiated format, a consensus format. A democracy that gives consensus a chance. A democracy that talks about the future of a country, the unity of a country, as opposed to a fragmented country, polarized country, where most African countries find themselves in. We have seen in the last 10 years or so, most of the elections in Africa have been contested by the opposition. Very few people in Africa, countries in Africa, where opposition has conceded defeat and come up to congratulate the winner. We have seen the South African model has worked very well. The Ghanaian model has worked so well. I don't see any other country in Africa where the models have worked well. I thought it would be Sierra Leone, but today we see Sierra Leone going back to the same ethnic tensions, as you can see from the reports that are circulating in the international media and the local media. So elections in Africa are contentious issues. They create a contentious position, create a departing point for the people of Africa, of that particular nation. The legacy of Uhuru Kenyatta, therefore, will be remembered for having brought the tranquility that we have today, the peace, the new format, the new tool of having a better organized civil Africa, an Africa without violence, an Africa without chaos after elections, when the opposition accepts to work for the interests of a nation, not personal interests. This has worked in Kenya, and thank you very much, Your Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, for the tenacity and the steadfastness that you have guided this handshake up to today. For those who want to mutilate the handshake, belittle the handshake. One lesson they should learn is to look at Libya. Libya was once a territory we all respected. It is no more. Let's keep the handshake and the legacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Thank you.
With regard to corruption, we will continue to fight. Irregardless of what will be said and done, we will fight, and we will fight, and we intend to fight and win. And it is unfortunate that sometimes this is politicized also, but as I said, this is a fight that Kenya must win, because if we can't create not just a fair environment, but a stable environment, it must also then be transparent. So that once you do your business, you know what you need to do, how you're going to do about it. So your business succeeds not on the basis of who you know, but how you do your business. That should be really what all of us should be focused on. Your business should not succeed or fail based on which government is in power. Right? It should be on the basis of the plans and the programs that you have as business people and what your business plan is. And that should be the basis of rating success. And this will happen. This will happen. It will be difficult. It will be noisy. But it will happen. It will happen. It will happen because there's no going back. And this is an agenda I just want to be very, very, very clear about.
Way back in 1998, the late Secretary General of the United Nations by name Kofi Annan thought of an idea, brought an idea of saying the only way to bring world order where crimes committed that are not punishable in local courts, local countries, regional courts could be taken to an international crimes court. The Rome Statute and Rome Treaty of 1998 July was an offspring of already cooked DSGE intelligence system mechanism to keep Africa under check. Up to date, the French government pays 70% of the salaries of the International Criminal Court, from the porter to the judge, to the prosecutor, and the rest of the other people. This was a project of Kofi Annan and the Kofi Annan Foundation, followed by George Soros as an accomplice of Kofi Annan, brought in by Luis Moreno Campo and the entire system of the West, some countries in the West, to keep check on African countries that did not agree with the policies of the French and to their policies of Western culture. The International Criminal Court Chief Prosecutor Luis Moreno Campo agreed in all this that yes, he has been picking money, extra monies, and we followed the story together with my group in France, powerful investigators in France who worked together with me. And we found out that, truly speaking, Luis Moreno Campo, Fernandez Gumedi, the former judge, the president of the International Criminal Court, laundered the money, some coming from American banks themselves. This evidence was put in the ICC. In the case of Bashir versus the chief prosecutor, I filed an application, which I still have, and which I'm going to publicize again, so that people can know that I was right. I've been vindicated because the American friends now have found that my credibility is real, that I was right when I stood up to say this court is corrupt. This court launders money, $17 million of United States money, laundered through Bahamas, through New York banks, back to Ocampo's personal assistant, by then called Fernandez Gomedi Silvia, who later on rose to the ranks of becoming the president of International Criminal Court. It has taken us time, energy, effort, resources to investigate the corruption scandal that have rocked the International Criminal Court. Why should African countries continue to be in the ICC? Yet even the superpowers like America are saying no, we have enough courts to try our own people. Viewers, it has taken Americans over 20 years to listen to our voices when we told Rainberger in Nairobi that this court is a corrupt court.
Today, on the eve of September the 11th, I want to deliver a clear and unambiguous message on behalf of the President of the United States. The United States will use any means necessary to protect our citizens and those of our allies from unjust prosecution by this illegitimate court. We will not cooperate with the ICC. We will provide no assistance to the ICC, and we certainly will not join the ICC. We will let the ICC die on its own. After all, for all intents and purposes, the ICC is already dead to us.
A case of the Kenyan people. These cases in Kenya, the chief prosecutor called Fatou Bensouda put serious statements at the end of the cases, discharge and termination. In legal language, these cases pose a very serious threat in the future. What the people of Kenya can do, and they should do, is today to wrap up the work envelope. Because until this envelope is sealed, thrown in Indian Ocean, the chief prosecutor in the future will come and look for that envelope, use it to incriminate people again. It brings me back to the situation. America is sealing its journey out of the ICC. Why do you wait? Why don't you take this opportunity to seal your journeys out of the ICC? America is quitting, warning that it cannot no longer be a party to such an obnoxious court, a court that has no powers, that talks from this side and vomits from the other side, a court that cuts and pastes evidence, a court that buys witnesses, a court that incites incentives, gives incentives to witnesses of a passport and a relocation, then you tell lies about people. A court that sentences you as per the words there. Why should you leave a country that has a jury that checks on what the judges would do, the excesses of judges, and go to a country, a court that has no jury? Time has come for Africa to think. Do we need this court? Does Africa need this court?
In the fight against corruption, it has been demonstrated throughout the world that unless you sustain the war, and it is a war, remember that there are individuals, not only in Nigeria, but throughout the world, who suckle from the breasts of corruption. And they are not just about to win themselves off the suckling. They must be forced out of it, and they'll fight back, because there are individuals, even in government, in all sectors of government, who now take their children to school on the basis of money corruptly acquired. They live in houses that are corruptly acquired. They do everything on the basis of things that are acquired through corruption. So when you want to stop it, they are going to kill you. They are going to ensure that you are neutralized. These are the people that you are fighting against, because these are individuals whose conscience is dead, and they are going to do anything on earth to prevent you. In fact, when one chooses to fight corruption, one must remember that he or she can't be eliminated at all times. And what President Buhari, and indeed any other president in the world, must do is to recruit the population. If the population has been wedded to the idea that corruption is a bad thing, then that is the beginning of the success of that battle. When I see, for example, your former Minister for Petroleum being investigated in the United Kingdom without being a sadist, I'm very happy. Because if you look at the wealth that he is alleged to have accumulated, that is unexplained wealth. Even if he lived for she lived for 1,000 years, she would never make that kind of money. James Seabury, who was prosecuted, convicted, and served sentence in the United Kingdom. What lacks in Africa is punishment. Impunity is alive and well in Africa. And we, the electorate, as I say times without number, are in the business of celebrating thieves. We must stop. Yesterday, Barrister Farana said it very well, that we camouflage theft by giving them nice English names: money laundering, fraud, embezzlement, and all those veneers that make them look as if it is some kind of nice game. Let us call these men and women by the right name. They are thieves, stealing on an industrial scale. They are murderers. And once we begin to call them like that, and they have a mark of Cain upon their forehead, and we shun them. Has it been done in African countries? Yes, it has been done. And I keep on repeating, in countries such as Tanzania, they are being dealt with. In Rwanda, they are being dealt with. In Mauritius, they are being dealt with. In Botswana, they are being dealt with. Once you begin to deal with them, then the others who may want to behave like them will begin to take the cue. We must, in the nature of things, earn what we earn through the sweat of our brow. That is the only way in which Africa will realize their potential. Many of these individuals who are in positions of leadership in Africa don't want to leave because they are thieves. And they are scared. They are scared that if they left office, they would be prosecuted. And my view is that they should be prosecuted. You know, individuals such as Hissène Habré, who we know what he did, was it in Chad, are a good example to the leadership that impunity will not thrive. Because I've been talking to a friend of mine from the Cameroons who tells me what is happening in their country right now. And other African countries are blind to it. It doesn't even occupy the headlines of the neighboring newspapers, of the country's neighbors' newspapers. Yet the Cameroon now should be in the same position as we see the conflict in Catalan in Spain. Yet we are attacking it in page 13 in newspapers in Nigeria, in Liberia, and other countries. Time has come that Africa must learn and realize that the world is not bothered about Africa. The world is only bothered about Africa when they want to take the resources of Africa. Then they bother. They want oil, they bother. And I'm using the word bother in a very deliberate fashion, not in the traditional orthodox fashion. They bother when they want to take our timber. They bother when they want to take our bauxite, when they want to take our coke, when they want to take our uranium. But they don't bother about us. They come to our continent without disrespecting the elephant, and they want to preserve the elephant so that they can come and watch the elephant, but they don't care if 100 Africans die. They want to preserve our monkeys. They want to preserve our leopards and our other animals, but they don't care about us. To them, Africa is a zoo of sorts. And until the day that we Africans realize that we are on our own, we are going nowhere. And very soon they are going to shut us out, if they have not shut us out already. We'll not go to the United States of America, we'll not go to Europe, and I'm happy that we are being forced to stay in Africa. Let us stay in Africa and build Africa. I mean, what does Africa lack in terms of resources? What do we lack? If it is solar energy, which continent is capable of producing solar energy to light this continent and the entire earth? If it is hydroelectricity, what can we not generate? If it is minerals, if we wanted to make bombs, if we should, where do they get their uranium from? If it is timber, what don't we have? If it is human resources, we are 2 billion of us, and we are people who have intelligence. And yet we are kept in a constant state of conflict. The Europeans, the French persuading their former colonies that they are more French than they are Yoruba. They are more French than they are Wolofs and Mandinkas. The British persuading us that we are more British than we are Ibibio or Yoruba. And of course, when we find ourselves in that schizophrenic state, then we engage in internal conflict and they sell their arms to us. Tell me, which African country makes guns? None. I think Africans must recognize that bad governance is harmful to their very well-being, not only for the current generation, but generations yet to be born. This is a continent that has always had potential. These are a people that have always had potential. But since we regained our independence from the colonialists, African leaders in many countries have consistently demonstrated that they are not working in the interest of their people. And that is sad, because many of the individuals who occupied positions of leadership are still beholden to the colonial masters. We see former French colonized nations, leaders who are beholden to Paris, those who are colonized by Portugal, beholden to Lisbon, those who are colonized by Belgium, beholden to Brussels, those colonized by the United Kingdom, beholden to London, and the single country that was colonized by Spain, Equatorial Guinea, beholden to Madrid. And this is tragic. Of course, currently, many African leaders are getting beholden to Beijing, and progressively the United States of America in Washington. The net effect is that the African agenda is being sacrificed to the detriment of the peoples. And we have examples which are live as I speak. The problems in the Cameroon, the problems in Togo, the problems in South Sudan, the problem in Central African Republic, in Mali, in Mauritania. And these are sad things. And the tragic thing is that the African Union appears to be helpless in this situation. Africa has been victimized by systems of government which we do not understand and which are not serving us well. And the time is now to wake up and to begin to find African solutions to African problems. Is it doable? Yes, it is. But we must wake up from our slumber, because those who are in positions of leadership are quite comfortable with the situation as it is. We must have something in the nature of an Arab Spring. The Arab streets woke up and they told their leaders, you are going to do that which is in our best interest. Unfortunately, some of the gains made after the Arab Spring have been clawed back. And that is a lesson for us, that if you
Good afternoon in Nairobi. Good morning elsewhere in West Africa. And good morning elsewhere in North Africa. Good morning in Southern Africa. Viewers, this is Punchline Africa Television. We are sorry for the delay in the broadcast this afternoon. We shall be looking at the Good Morning Africa, depending on wherever you are in the world. And good morning in Europe, good morning in America, down under the fire ranging in Australia, good morning, good evening, in Russia, in China, in South America. Thank you very much to those watching us. This is the Punchline Africa Television, the only television station that talks about Pan-African issues, dissects issues, what ails Africa, what kills Africa, what can we do, what solutions can we bring for Africa in order to get out of the quagmire that we find ourselves in. Today, my co-host is off and on some other assignments. I will handle the subject myself, and I will begin with the legacy trend of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Achievements, obstacles, success. Challenges, obstacles, and achievements. What can he do in the remaining 2.5 years to be able to salvage the legacy? And that is the main topic. Will be, if you look at the Kenyan newspapers all over the whole weekend, starting from Friday, something is strange, and there is a common denominator that indicates that the center is not the same. As a result of that, the topical issue of discussion this afternoon, and those up in other parts of the world in this morning, is, can the center hold? I will dissect, I will look at that after a few remarks, and the remarks on the legacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta. This morning when I was writing the legacy trend, I looked at Shakespeare. I looked at what he said. Shakespeare said, the coins make noise, but notes, the currency in notes is always silent. So when you get the currency in notes, don't overjoy. And that is what Shakespeare said. A good writer, a poet. Most of you who have read English literature in senior secondary schools, A levels, you must have come across Shakespearean writings, the Julius Caesar, and all the plays that we performed while we are in senior secondary school. Some of us did it in 1973, way back. Challenges and obstacles. Challenges, it's a very big challenge and a very big obstacle. Anybody who knows English language will not ask what a challenge and what an obstacle is. They are two different things. Look for their meanings in the dictionary. But as I know the English that I did, J.A. Bright, not Ogundipe, not Makonde, not all these small things of yours. A challenge is different from an obstacle. A challenge is, you see it. An obstacle is real there, but challenge is just a short-term frustration. An obstacle could be long-term obstacle, but the challenge is a short-term. I believe my social media general manager will tell me the two differences in a short while. But coming back today, the challenges that the legacy trend finds, the legacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta finds, are the people. Are the people willing to take in this big four? Are the people sensitized enough on the big four? Do people know what they want? Healthcare is a universal healthcare is the best. Food security is the best. Housing is needed. All the four-tier system that the president suggested are needed to human nature, are needed for a human being to be able to live, to sustain himself and the economy, at the same time with the family and to feed his people. You need the three available. You need housing, you need food, you need health care. Is Kenya ready for it? We have 2.5 years. What can be taken seriously out of this? When you read the headline, the NHIF being again confused, frustrated, challenges coming in NHIF is not now an obstacle. It is a challenge to the people who created the big four to go back and find out, is it better to use these regulations? It's not an obstacle. It's a challenge to the people who actually put up what we call universal health care systems. Can the president overcome this challenge? It's not an obstacle, it's a challenge, because corruption has infiltrated the system of NHIF. Therefore, people are corrupt, managers are corrupt, some people are misusing the same system. It becomes a challenge to the institution. It becomes a challenge, not an obstacle anymore. The success is that there is NHIF card. How many people in Kenya are using it? How many people are able to have it? How many people are able to improve upon it? That's the challenge we have. Not an obstacle, it's a challenge. But when you come to another phase of what an obstacle is structural challenge. Structural obstacles. There are obstacles in this country that have made it impossible for this universal health care to be achieved. The president and the other people have done what we call pilot schemes around the counties of Machakos, Nyeri, Makueni, the Chitui, and some other places in this country. But the obstacle remains a structure. Did we move so fast? Did we move universal health ministry too fast to devolution? That's an obstacle now for the government to find out. How many of these have we moved and evolved? Do we need more nurses? Who is to look at the number of nurses, increase them, recruit them? How many do we need? The structures are the ones bringing these obstacles. The obstacles are structures. That's why you see strikes happening in the Ministry of Health, nurses, because of the structures of bureaucracy. The red tape that we see in this ministry creates those strikes that we see that leave the patients sick. Another agenda 4, which could be a legacy, is the food and agriculture, the food security. There's a difference between the enough food and the food security. You can produce a lot of food, but are you having the food security? Yes or no? You can produce food, eat it in a day, you get satisfied, but what about tomorrow? Storage, it involves food security. Expansion of change of methods to improve the production. These are some of the things that we, the government and the legacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta, would like to leave behind. Whether he will succeed in these 2.5 years left remains on the hands and the shoulders of Kenyans to participate, to improve, to help, and that is all. Whoever comes the president in 2022 is not my problem. My problem is, can this be achieved as a legacy so that the one who comes in 2022 can go ahead, improve what was done, a foundation, a legacy that was left. I'm not a Kenyan for me to decide on who should be the 2022 flag bearer or who should be the president. It is up to the people of Kenya to make their choice. And that choice will come in 2022. We have 2.5 years today that the challenges that the country faces must be faced when you are united. They must have a unity of purpose. You can't face these challenges that this country faces when you are fighting. The infighting that you see embedded in the ruling party has brought about the challenges, the obstacles. It has become an obstacle in improvement and the execution of Agenda 4. It is true that this is not I want to thank Mario. A challenge demands active response, short-term active response. And the obstacle is a deterrent to the action that you have put forward. Indeed, I'm very happy that, brother, you are watching. It is prudent, therefore, for the people of Kenya to sit down and find out what is it that they want in 2.5 years. The bickering that we see, the headlines that we see, tend to show that there are people interested in power grabbing and the power at the expense of everything, no development. How do you then ask for the votes of the people of Kenya in 2022 when you have not helped to improve their lives in the whole of these 5 years? How then do you go to the public and seek more support when you cannot help them to improve the health care service? How then do you go to the public and ask for their votes when they are sleeping in Manyatta, when they are sleeping in poor conditions? How then do you go to the same people when there is nothing, no employment, no industries, no manufacturing basis, no infrastructure to bring out or to go or to come out? How then do you ask for their votes in 2022? How then do you do this when you have frustrated the programs that are supposed to be giving the ordinary citizens of this country the services that they deserve? It is up to you, therefore, Kenyans, between now and 2022, to choose rhetoric and work. Either you work with the president or you continue with your rhetoric, because working with the president will deliver the votes that you want. There is nothing you need. It's a matter of working with the president to ensure that these projects, the roads, the construction, it is not politics. Let's not turn everything into politics. Let's not turn everything into political games. Let's not turn everything into, I have been here speaking all the time. The problem is that I am not a Kenyan, but the experience I have in political science and the studies that I undertook in political science and international relations to the last degree of anywhere where I can challenge even the white people themselves who brought political science as a subject, and plus the experience I have had since I joined the struggle in 1978 is enough to put sense into people. I have been open. I have said it, that when Sicily is burning, don't look for Rome. Nikolai Machiavelli could not mind about Sicily. The emperor said, my dear brother, why don't you help us? Go ye ahead to the Pope in Rome. Ask for help. The barbarians are coming. The Ottoman Empire is coming to conquer us in Sicily. Florence, which was the capital city of Marco Polo, the rest of these explorers who went to China to carry diamonds, to exchange goods, to bring goods from China and take goods to China. Machiavelli was more preoccupied with power. Machiavelli wanted to get more power at the expense of Sicily. Machiavelli did not bother whether Sicily collapses. But later on, Machiavelli, in the middle, tried to form an army to come back instead of defending Sicily. A very good show of might by conquering the emperor. It is therefore very important that in the people, when you talk about the politics and give experiences, people should understand where you come from. It is up to the Kenyans themselves to sort out what they need and what they don't need. The BBI, the handshake are part of you. The BBI is not a political process. The BBI is a healing process. It's a redemption strategy to make sure that after every 5 years, nobody dies in an election. Nobody is killed because of an election. Most of us who had this BBI in our minds, who had this strategy of redemption, are aware of the main pillars of BBI. Perhaps we should have changed the name to a redemption strategy. Maybe people there would have understood what it means. A redemption strategy is the healing. It brings up healing. From 1992, Kenya has accumulated accrued hatred as a result of elections. People who have taken part in these elections from 1992, most of them have died, some have died, some have tried, have been killed in the process, some have fled this country, some have gone wherever they have because of elections. It is therefore very important for people to understand why BBI and why a redemption strategy was needed in Kenya. Redemption means reparation, restitution, accountability. Very important. Accountability, truth-telling, reconciliation. If Kenyans cannot reconcile and they all fix their eyes towards an election, I'm telling you, it will explode in 2022. That's why President Uhuru Kenyatta is saying enough is enough. Let's do out of this, let's pick one thing that can bring unity or purpose in this country. The model of BBI, of handshake, should not be misunderstood as a political process. And anybody misunderstanding it as a political process is the enemy of the people of Kenya. It's not a political process. It is a healing process. And if you don't do it, then prepare for the worst. If you can't do the healing process, prepare for the worst. You saw an election, 3 elections. One election was nullified. We went back to do another election. Some of us who are friends of the people of Kenya even broke our hands. We mashed accidents because of elections. But after that, these 3 elections that were conducted, the second election was done. The campaigns were done. The gruesome campaigns under very difficult conditions. People taking off their shirts. Men of age taking off shirts and sleeping on the streets with their younger children, seeing them over TV. We needed a break. Kenya needed a break from this type of politics. City mortuaries expanded. From 1992, people have been looking for morticians every 5 years. Create more morticians. Bring more people who can read postmortems of people who have been killed. The implosion that came about in the year 2007, 2008 is a result of accrued hatred. The hatred that has caused the Kenyans to kill each other every 5 years. It is therefore very important for the people of Kenya to understand that time has come for them to choose what is the best for them. Don't blame the leaders all the time. As I have told you, Shakespeare told you, the coins make a lot of noise. In fact, let me read it very ably so that people can understand and don't say, I did not read it properly. So the situation, Shakespeare said, coin is always make sound, but the currency notes are always silent. So when you value, your value increases. Keep yourself calm and silent. What does that mean? Therefore brings me to, I leave it with you, and that brings me to the Kenyan newspapers, which I will combine to use as my notes today for the topical issue, whether the center can hold or not. Can the center hold? can the center hold in this legacy? Is the center holding? Reading from the book Chinua Achebe, where he said, and I remember Chinua Achebe was one of the best writers in Africa, one of the best writers Africa has ever had. But Chinua Achebe, writing in Umofia clan, made it very clear that the Umofia clan had been put together. But the white man came with a bicycle that drinks milk. The white man came, and here we are. Can the center hold? That is the topic of the day. And I've done the legacy. I'll go straight to the topic because I have a few minutes to deliver several punchy points. Today's newspaper, The Standard, on front page, any reader in the world says it is now Ruto versus Kenyatta and Raila. The gloves are off. Deputy President tears into the handshake and the BBI for the first time, dismissing the pact between the president and the ODM leader as special vehicle to State House. These statements are very, very worrying. They are worrying in the sense that today there are problems that are self-made, self-inflicted wounds. In political science, there is something that we call timing. And let me teach those who might know or have very little knowledge about political science or politics at all, who have never studied the tools of analysis in political science. There is always timing. It's very important. You can start, but if you don't time, you might not finish. Can the center hold? If you see the remarks and the statements that are coming now, had people listened to the president, these remarks will not be here. These statements will not be here. And let's be very frank and discuss them. The weekend, you started it yourselves. Jubilee Party started the chaos. One faction in Jubilee Party went ahead to drum, not development, but to drum support for something they didn't even know. They went ahead for the whole 1 year, and the president was saying, please, help me. People did not listen. Every observer of the Kenyan politics will tell you that this is exactly what has happened in Kenya. People did not listen. On a number of times, the president came out to say, please, stop your early campaigns. Stop the campaigns and concentrate on Big Four agenda. Every week, tactics changed. If it is opening roads, we changed it to opening cathedrals, churches. We checked on schools. We checked on other things. Development, therefore, was put in as a decoy to do campaigns. It went on growing and especially the area where the president comes from, he was frustrated by the same people, because whoever designed this strategy of Machiavelli and of Fanoni Fanzi, that if you want to defeat your enemy, if you want to defeat your people, you go back to his place. This was the theory that was used in Luwelo Triangle by Museveni. The only thing that Museveni could do in Luwelo Triangle was to kill more and more other people. The troops, Okero you could kill, the Basilios could kill, he could also kill and turn it on the government. The government blames the rebels blame the government. In that confusion, that is the similar confusion that has been brought in Mount Kenya. A group of people were singled out to insult the president from morning up to evening. Schemes were made. 2020 is the year to tell the truth. Speak it out and go with it. Die for the truth. Several Machiavellian tactics were brought in Mount Kenya to kill, to belittle, to besmirch the name of the president. It has now come out. It is haunting you. And you who thinks you are all right, it is going to turn back. Because remember, I've said, in political science, it's timing. And then remember, the president has not talked. The legacy trend notes this talk is not yet there. He has not gone into to say, I am here. You asked me questions. You asked for me. The disintegration and the compartmentation, disintegration of the Mount Kenya bloc by those who want the 2022 elections created what we have today, which is on these headlines. Gloves are off as Uhuru and Ruto rift widens. Is Uhuru-Ruto marriage over? These headlines that we see in the Kenyan papers are a worry to anybody who wants a peaceful country in the region. You don't need to be a Kenyan to get worried about Kenya owned. You don't need to be, even Bazungu who do business in this country get worried when they read headlines of this nature. This is all because the president said, please forget about campaigns. Time is coming. Let's concentrate. Let's fight corruption. Let's stabilize our economy. Let's try to see how we pay our debts. There is no country in the world that does not have debts. Even a pound in Britain today, as we sit, there are people here mourning about economic hardship. Some of us who live in those countries in Britain, for example, we also suffer a lot of economic hardships. A pound is no longer the pound that you can go down to Sainsbury, or you can go to Tesco's and buy food for 100 pounds, which we used to buy and stock for the whole 2 weeks. The economy is really bad everywhere in the world. The only problem in Britain is there is a social contract between the people, and there is, if you don't have a job, you'll be paid for not having a job, which we don't have in Africa. There is nowhere in Africa where things are not are rosy. I have not seen one country. I haven't. Probably Rwanda, but even in Rwanda, people would like to buy things from Nairobi to take them there. So there is no country in Africa which is stable and talking about a powerful economy. Why? We have no social contract. We have no social contract that fights corruption. We have no social contract that makes sure that when the judges give you bail, you return to the police to sign. How many of these probation officers are working today? How many probation officers are working today? How many probation officers are checking on the people who are given bail on NYS money? That's it, a social service. That is a social contract. Yes, we don't have it. We cannot. How many people today who are being paid the retirement benefit? How many people receive the checks? How many people wait for the state to have a handout because there is something that is so good that has been delivered? We don't. Not in Uganda, not in Kenya, not in Tanzania, not even in South Africa, which inherited the regime of apartheid with plenty of infrastructure which they have corruptly destroyed. The blame of economy being used is the same. You cannot have an economy when you have squabbles. You cannot have a good economy when you have squabbles, when you have fighting, when you have chaos, when you have a conflict, when you are fighting, when you are insulting each other. You can't have an economy. You can't. It is serious, therefore, to watch that these statements don't break us up. Some of us are not Kenyans, but some of us have studied Kenya and Africa. We are passed in exams in explaining what is a Great Lakes region, what could trigger X to do Y. Therefore, if you don't want a Kenyan, a Ugandan to speak about Kenya, what about the Bazungu who predict a war will be here? This morning, British people gave advisory note not to travel. How do they know? Yet they are 10,000 miles away, and you don't want a Ugandan who is across here to talk about Kenya? That is the most silly thing that I have ever seen. If Nkrumah woke up or Nyerere woke up, if Nkrumah woke up and Nyerere woke up, and Baba Tafa Balewa, Patrice Lumumba, Sekou Touré, Amir Kabura, Jomo Kenyatta, who loved everybody. If he woke up and saw people discriminating people because of nations, of tribes, they would die twice. It is sad, therefore, that in the current dispensation of global unity, we still don't listen to other people's advice. But we prefer to listen to the white man who would come to tell us how bad the economy is. Yet, we have also black professors who can equally tell you that we are going to have a forecast of a bad economy in 2 years, 3 years, 10 years. It is sad, therefore, when you don't know what timing is in political science and you go on talking. People are reaping from where they sow. You avoided the president's advice. And what is happening today is a typical example of the reaping of the fruits that you planted. There is no middle class. There is always, and I've urged this to Africans, there is no middle class in Africa. We have a pseudo middle class. Pseudo. a pseudo middle class that steals from the common man and steals from the hierarchy or from kickbacks of the, the contracts. That is not a middle class. That is not a middle class. In Nigeria, they steal from both the civilians and from the government. Buhari is stealing. The middle class is in pseudo. There's no middle class in Africa. Show me the middle class in Africa. Show me one middle class. Where is it? It is not there. It's a pseudo middle class that we have in Africa that steals from the common mwananchi and then steals from government contracts. And then they claim to be the middle class. Some people even invent names. I am so and so. I am so and so. I am like this. After stealing from the middle class, from the top of contracts and from the bottom of the taxpayer, you seek yourself a position in the middle. You are not a middle class. There is a middle class in England. There is a middle class in America. There is a middle class in China. Because they have a surplus. They kill those who are corruptly touching the money which is supposed to build the roads. They shoot them. They have got an institution of a social contract. The Chinese eat 1 meal in a day, while we Africans eat 3 meals to 4 meals in a day. You even beat your wife for failing to cook lunch. Is that Africa we want? Is that the Africa we want? We kill our wives, our housemaids, because he has not prepared lunch. But the Chinese eats 1 meal in a day. Indians eat 1 meal. Simple. Roti and chicken curry. Or roti and tea. He works in the shop for 12 hours. We Africans want a break. 10 o'clock, you are running out for tea. The whole working situation stands still because you have to drink tea. What? The Chinese work once. They have a social contract. India has almost 2 billion people. But they don't kill each other on an election. The center in India holds during an election which is conducted for 3 months. Can you conduct an election in Africa for 3 months? I think you will kill everybody in your country. If elections in Africa were conducted, look at what Buhari has done. Look at Paul Biya. Look at Uganda. What is happening in Kampala today? What is every African, every Ugandan? What will happen if 2021 arrives and the election is coming? How many people will end up in prison? How many people will not be able to play their music? If you look at Tanzania, a model of democracy, because they have put institutions, they have put safeguards, to their democracy. There is no petitioning in Tanzania about presidential elections. Because it is the very thing that Nyerere thought about that brings chaos. Whereas in Kenya, we want to look at the Westminster, we want to look at the American type of constitution where you have brought a president. And listen to this. Part of what brings chaos in Kenya is presidential elections. Is presidential elections, period. There is the name electing a president in Kenya is what is making these headlines. People want that thing, the presidency. Perhaps time has come for Kenyans to review whether they want to elect the president or they want to elect MPs. Full stop. South Africa goes to elections, and as soon as it finishes elections, the following morning, people are in offices working. Hey, hallelujah. Can Kenya do that? That's what BBI, that's what people want to be educated about. You need to tell people the truth. Other than telling people that you are annoyed with people who are doing a public participation. What is wrong with public participation? The Constitution of the Republic of Kenya says public participation. Whether you do it single-handedly, or you do it in a format, or you do it in a church, you are doing public participation. You can read this BBI together. You can read it in a format of constituency. There's nobody stopping you. Get your people and also go out to educate them on what you want. Because there is one thing here where people are not speaking out. The BBI was set among the 9 points to clean an election, electoral mechanisms. Let me teach here now. Because I studied political science, not plants, not animals, not mathematics, not chemistry. This is my subject. Every 5 years, the people of Kenya, experts tell you, fix your elections. 24 months, Hans Kurigla told you. Another person will tell you. And another one will tell you. I'm also now telling you, fix your elections. If you don't fix your elections, just forget. The troubles of this country originate from bad elections. Kenyans are the most peaceful people. Kenyans are the most humble people. Kenyans give hospitality to every person. Kenyans are the best people on this continent. They don't discriminate people, except a few mandarins on bundle boys. The few bundle boys that are on paid 300 bundles in order to insult people, to insult their leaders. That's it. But Kenyans are the best people on this continent. They have good hearts. They accept what it is. They are people who have liberty. They give it to people. So why can't you look? But the moment you start announcing elections in Kenya, guess what happens? You said the election will be in 2022. People have now gone tearing each other, wearing suits, entering helicopters, going everywhere, going, look at it. Look at my friends, my friend Moses Kuria. Look at the way he is. He is publicly, you know, as if he's got some ghosts, some spirits. He's publicly, you know, insulting the president. He's a member of parliament. He's a member of parliament of the president. Look at his mouth. It's very good. But all this is because of elections. In Nigeria, Buhari does not, you don't even think there is a president in Nigeria. Because he stole the vote and kept quiet. And just kept quiet. 84 million voters in Nigeria voted, registered. 28 only voted. So, where are the rest? Tell me. Where are the 56 million gone? They did not vote. Because there is no social contract to vote for. Chinese lend us money. Last night at about 3, this morning for about 3:30, I was reading about the might of the Chinese Communist Party. This Communist Party has only 7 people. 7. They rule a population of 2 billion because they have a social contract. You don't steal any government money. They eat 1 meal of noodles in a communal setting. We Africans want to eat course 1, course 2, course 3, course 4. Even beat up your wife. Beat up people who cook. When you come back and you don't find the course number 6. That's what the Africa we have. It is therefore very important, like Albert Einstein said, I am thankful to those who said no to me. It is because of them I did it myself. That is Albert Einstein. He said it. Albert Einstein said it. He said, I'm thankful to those who said no to me when I was saying these things, because I did them myself. We continue to say these things for the last 2 years. Since the handshake, I have been here at the receiving end. I'm one of those who has been insulted more as a foreigner. But patriotism has no color, no creed, no foreigner, no owner. Patriotism is patriotism. When you have patriotism, you don't quarrel. You continue to do what you are supposed to do. You don't ask for rewards. You don't ask for, a volunteer does not ask for rewards. The heart of a volunteer knows deep where the tears come from. I therefore have done it, and I will continue to do it. Looking at the things that I hear, the newspaper worries me. And as a friend, I feel so sad that I had to talk about this subject. I want to say, if we don't change, if we don't read the comments, remember Julius Caesar, a beggar, as his horses passed, one beggar said, can I speak to Julius Caesar? The soldiers did not want the beggar to say it, to talk. But the beggar says, no, please, let me speak to Julius Caesar. There is a Brutus and a Cassius, because the comets don't come all the time that way. They stay there for 7 weeks. Comets only come when someone big is going, or something big is going to happen. So therefore, the signs are here. Do you read them? Do you read them? Mr. Kibet, Pekles, Mutai. The economy of this country is not different from the economy of other countries. In Africa, the biggest difference of the economy of Kenya is you don't produce enough food. That's why the president brought Agenda 4 of food security. You produce food, but you waste it. You don't preserve it. You rely on imports. Every day, every year, you are crying of importing more maize. because there are no facilities, there are no methods, tools, engagement, strategies of keeping food. Policies are not there. The policies have been violated because mercantile capitalism has come on board and taken the entire setup of food policies. Every year, Kenya imports huge tonnage of maize. Why? They grow maize. The farmers, Kibet, where you come from, Mutai, farmers are still having maize at their homes. Some have created extra granaries to keep the maize of last year. But because the government is more, or the people in the Ministry of Agriculture, or the Minister of Agriculture and his policymakers are not focused on food security, on how to preserve the little and encourage the farmers to take their food, the crops, to be spoiled at the depots, you have ended up with a wastage. Do you blame Uhuru Kenyatta for that? No, you blame ourselves. Because when you touch the Minister of Finance, you saw the president was condemned by Senator Murkomen, who said you have touched the center, you have touched our person. When you go for corrupt officials, the president is condemned. Mr. Kibet, Pekeres, Mutai. When you go for corrupt people, whichever tribe they come from, you say you have come for our people. It is us who demonstrate. It is us who support Kuria when he slaps a woman, somebody's daughter. You slap somebody's daughter. You beat a woman, the weakest link. It is like Al-Shabaab. Instead of going for military themselves, it goes for pupils, students in schools who are unarmed. There's no difference between Kuria and Al-Shabaab because Kuria goes for women. He doesn't come for strong men like us and face us. If you hit you'll hit back. Why do you slap? But it is us politicians, the civilians, the demonstrators, the villagers who go to Kilimani police station wanting to free him by force, forgetting, and I'm explaining your point, forgetting that there is somebody's daughter who has been beaten. How many people demonstrated because Wanja was beaten? Do you blame the government? The economy itself is everywhere. In Britain, I've told you, in America. That's why America has to divert its attention because the economy under Trump is not doing very well. People have lost houses, mortgages. Repossession of houses in America, the rate is very high because there's no money in circulation. Instead, America has gone for war. So it is not only Kenya where things are bad. Everywhere in the world, the economy is not very good. Go to South Africa. Some of the products are not there. Mercantile capitalism does not guarantee food security. True. But we bring in mercantile capitalism, Mr. Kibet, in order to buy local entrepreneurs, those who bought maize in your region, in Rift Valley, who went to Uganda and brought in maize. Yet there was maize in Trans Nzoia, there was maize in Nandi, there was maize in Eldoret, there was maize in Kericho. Shame upon them. That's the type of life we are talking about. Mercantile capitalism encourages importing food from the trade abroad. And that's exactly what I'm explaining to. Thank you very much, Nixon. Because some of these Kenyan friends of mine have a problem. They don't want to listen. You see, they don't want to listen. They always yap up with things, but they don't. Well, you see, there are so many things that we have done wrong as Africans. That's why the center cannot hold. The center cannot hold in Kenya because the timing is awkward. Because people did not listen to President Uhuru Kenyatta. Had people listened to him, he said, don't campaign, don't do early campaigns. Thank you very much. Let me go briefly to African news that have made headlines in Africa just now. Thank you very much. News coming from Guinea-Bissau indicate the Guinea-Bissau Supreme Court has rejected the presidential election result challenge to the current president who recently visited Kenya a few weeks ago. The court has rejected the application by the other former prime minister challenging Mr. Umaro Sissoco Embalo victory in the last month's elections. That is in Guinea-Bissau. And across in Guinea-Conakry, we have demonstrations continuing on the streets of Conakry, where people speak. They want Mr. Conde not to entrench himself to power. In Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Prime Minister has asked South Africa to mediate the Nile Dam dispute. We have the Nile Dam dispute between Sudan, Egypt, and Ethiopia. It could break us. We Ugandans, where the river comes, we are not fighting anybody. We are continuing to abide by the 1954 agreement, which built the own falls dam, and we provide the water to go all the way to the Nile. Again, Ethiopian Prime Minister expects a parliamentary election in May or June. There will be parliamentary elections in Ethiopia in May or June. France summons African leaders threatening troop pullout. The French are facing hostility in Mali, in 5 former colonies over stalled fight against extremists. I said it here, and the people thought I was a madman. There you are. There you are. There you are. I told you, there's something wrong. You cannot fight, and extremism is expanding all the way in the Sahara region, destroying people, killing people. Yet French troops are available in these places. We go again. Opposition politician arrested for inciting violence in Malawi. I have asked people whether Africa needs elections. Nobody has ever answered me conclusively. United Kingdom issued travel advisory to citizens visiting Kenya. We are aware, but we shall overcome. And then lastly, I think we have that. And then Ethiopian Boeing 737-700 suffered poor visibility due to the brown smear on the windshield that couldn't come off despite the use of cockpit windshield wipers, while insects, locusts, went into the engines. The plane had to go back down in the airport of Dia Dawa. A decision was made to divert to Addis Ababa, where the plane landed safely 30 minutes later. You see, the insects have come. And the special Gazette notes, I think, I don't know what it is. It can't be seen properly. The president has actually now finally gazetted the team for the BBI and on an extended with technocrats that are involved in it. That is the end of our bulletin, the end of our news across Africa. Today we touched on a number of issues. Topical issue was Kenya. I want to thank you very much. Continue watching. If you missed some parts, later on we might come back with the editor's memo where we shall look deeply at the events that are making headlines across the region of Africa, in Cameroon, Abidjan, in Nigeria, Biafra. We all pray for you. In Libya, Tripoli, in South Sudan, we pray for you and we pray for peace. Thank you very much. God bless you.